Hi guys and gals, for this installment of USS Little Rock's Archaeology, we are on the first platform. And in the last episode, we were roughly at about frame 49, 50. Well, now we're at frame 101 to 106. So we've bypassed all of the machinery spaces, the two fire rooms, the two engine rooms, and now we're heading to the aft of the ship. In 1960, this space was converted as most of the aft superstructure and through the rest of the ship was for the Taos missile system. Right? We're in the aft gyro compass space right now, and here's the example. We also had one at, say, Central Station, about 200 feet forward from here, and these were the master gyro compasses for the ship. Looking at both sides, these doors became the SPG-49 equipment room. And again, for the Taos missile, this was the SPG-49s were the tracking system. So if you've come down here or you look at pictures, you'll see those two big domes. They look like big drums, right? Those are the SPG-49s. And these two equipment rooms controlled the direction of those domes. So let's head in and we'll show you the computers. Of course, around us, there's a lot of power panels charging and energizing the space, and also the repeaters for the radars itself, right? We had a lot of large radars. They were collecting a lot of data, and you needed to cut through that snow, so to speak, to get the actual targets. So around this corner, you will see these two very archaic but state-of-the-art computers for 1960. We had the acquisition computer and the targeting computer. So this would give you a general overview of your surroundings, 360 degrees. This would vector in a little bit closely and take a slice of that 360 degree pie. And this console was actually where you can track up to 6 targets at once. But of course, in 1945, the Taos missile was non-existent. The Bumblebee program had just started right at towards the end of World War II. And Lucas is going to tell you about what this space was from 1945 to 1949.
So while this is one space now, originally in 1945, this would have been 2 spaces. Where these computers are is the former 5-inch powder magazine and ammunition stowage. And then we find this big beam here, which is the remains of a bulkhead, into the former 5-inch ammunition hoists. And unlike the forward 5-inch magazines, we can see evidence of this being the hoist room. So up above me here is a giant blank in the overhead, and you can see it goes almost to that bulkhead over there, and it comes all of the way around to over these wires, almost to the beam here. This covers up the former hoists that go up into the space above us. And you might remember from the last video, we have the original ladder and the original ballistics hatch to signify this was a space with explosives that you don't want to explode. So in addition to that, there are also a couple of pretty big differences between these rear 5-inch handling rooms and the forward 5-inch handling rooms from last video. So you might remember I said that the ammunition handling spaces were all connected, but that's not the case here. So this door that leads from the gyro room to what was the powder room just didn't exist. This was a blank bulkhead because this space was always the gyro room. And that's the other big difference between these spaces and the forward spaces. They're not all on the same deck. And we can see some evidence of that over here. So directly below the gyro was the former 5-inch ammunition hoists. And we can see the remains of those hoists down in the deck. There's this kind of square cutout blanked over. And then in the overhead, we have half of another square overhead. This beam has been filled in, and then on the other side of the beam, we have the other half of this rectangle. So the original hoist went from where my foot is through this beam and up through the rest of the ship. And we can see that even better over here on this side. In the overhead, we can see the full unobstructed ammunition hoist remains. So now we're going to have to make our way down to the second platform to see what remains of the center ammunition handling rooms and powder spaces.
So now we are in the space directly below where we were, where Lucas was pointing out the hoists going through the overhead. As we mentioned, up above on the first platform, that was for Mount 54 and 55. Down on the second platform, this was for the center most aft Mount 56 5-inch twin. It's a frustrating space architecturally. It's a tight space, and Lucas is going to point out some of those things. This was the top of the shafts, so directly below us is Shaft Alley. All right, and this was also the SATCOM motor generator space for satellite communications, as I can imagine. So Lucas will point out some of those things, and we'll get them in front of the camera.
So unfortunately, there's not much we can see here because the insulation strikes again. The overhead is completely insulated. But we do know, at the very least, there was one hoist here just in front of the door and another hoist here just in front of me. Despite that, there are still a few things we can see. So this bulkhead was built in the 60s. So it's not original, and this created the fan room. Now originally, the hoist room would have gone all the way back to that bulkhead, or frame 105, and then there would be a door there to lead into the 5-inch powder magazine. And again, we can't see it because there's some kind of metal grating covering it up. But there is one other thing we can see down here. So originally, this space was the 5-inch hoist, and over here was the black powder charges for the ship's catapult. Now there would have been a bulkhead here to separate the hoist room from the catapult charge room, but we can still see the original entrance into the catapult room through this hatch.
Yeah, you could see the outline of the door. So this trunk would have had two openings, one that we walked through and one leading into the black charge for the catapult space. So while this is a tight space, it's hard to see some architecture. As was mentioned, Lucas said, insulation strikes again. Now we are going to be heading, as we have in every video since the start, we're going to be heading aft through that bulkhead 105 and see what was originally the 5-inch powder and the 6-inch powder space and what it became today. A little hint, It has something to do with the Taos missile. Thanks again, and we'll see you again soon.